After many years of meditating without any focus on memory that I was aware of, a chance encounter got me into using memory as the basis for meditation. And after feeling the relief it brought to my persistent issues with depression, I wanted more memory-based meditation practices for myself. And given that the Magnetic Memory Method is all about excellence for life through excellence in memory, my recent practice and a segment of my teaching has been all about bringing the techniques of memory improvement together with the techniques of meditation. And it's not just because this combination of techniques has helped me with depression, but also because we have every scientific reason to predict that combining the two techniques will help many other people as well. After all, Dr. Tim Dalglish's research into using the Memory Palace technique in combination with positive memories is something anyone can reproduce. Frankly, it's fairly impossible for it not to improve your mood, provided you practice it consistently. So if you struggle with depression and other oddities of a diseased brain like I do, then your quality of life is at stake, not to mention life as such. But what if you're already well-balanced and happy? Well, congratulations, you're very lucky. And I'm confident you'll benefit from these techniques as well, even though my mission is to help people who suffer in ways that relate to my own daily battles and the victories of lasting mental peace combining memory training and meditation has helped me establish. And in many cases, none of us float free from the dark forces of failure. So even if some of us certainly face daily battles a touch more challenging than others, combining memory and meditation is for everyone. And I feel that probably the best thing I can do to help the world as I work with my own practice and develop these techniques is to practice with those who might need them and those who simply want to experience more mental peace and freedom from the blah 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 monkey mind while exploring their memory. You see, one thing I quickly learned while practicing this form of memory-based meditation for myself is that there's almost zero explanatory and exploratory material rich with exercises to help others. That's why I wrote The Victorious Mind, How to Master Memory, Meditation, and Mental Well-Being, which I see as the first step towards bringing something very powerful to the memory training world. However, that book focused on just one of the two streams of memory-based meditation practice. As far as I can tell, there are almost no materials for people on the second type, apart from the live stream I held, where those in attendance had the opportunity to reproduce the findings from Dr. Dalglish's experiments. Now, I know it's a live stream replay, but it's still there and you can watch it if you like, and sometimes people bump into it. I think you'll find it useful too. Now, I thought I could wait until finishing the second book before starting to share this second type of memory-based meditation. But since it is a quality of life matter, carpe diem. But caveat emptor too, magnetic friends. Because although everything I do is premised upon solid scientific research and what I find to be a properly realistic understanding of what science is, we are experimenting. And although this material will be free, caveat emptor is precisely the right phrase here, because nothing I'm going to suggest is free in the normal sense. Rather, it is free only when you follow the free model and pay the price of your time, focus, and attention. And this means frequent practice in a state of relaxation and a spirit of experimentation so you can be endlessly entertained and engaged as your life improves. That is the price I've paid many times to experience relief from my messed up neurochemistry. And it is the price everyone must pay to possess a victorious mind. And the main obstacle we all face is that we really do have to practice consistently. The brain cannot form the neural connections needed for positive habit formation without frequency. But the good news is that well-formulated and precisely targeted guided meditations based on memory are a great way to start forming a regular practice. And so things are about to change, because I'm going to release a number of guided meditations based on the second memory-based meditation technique I've codified for myself. And although I've worked out a formula for myself, it's not exactly something I invented. It's based on learning from many sources and based on much practice influenced by study and training. For example, I've studied and practiced Gary Weber's suggested approaches in Happiness Beyond Thought and Evolving Beyond Thought for several years now. And at the moment, for both research fun and my personal interest, I'm also completing one of what I hope will be several certifications as a mindfulness meditation teacher to supplement the memory teacher training I received from Tony Buzan years ago. I'll probably submit one of the videos I'm making for you as part of completing the certification for the Mindfulness Meditation Teacher project I'm completing as we speak. But before I start releasing these learning experiences to share with you how I practiced and have added memory exercises to the mix, I just wanted to take a moment to discuss what memory-based meditation is, let you know about the direction the channel is going to take, and hope you can get started and hopefully get some feedback from people who are interested in this work using memory techniques in combination with meditation. And again, this has already been started in the victorious mind. And I'm very confident it can evolve into many great things as we row together into the future on the turbulent seas of life. So if you're ready to go through some memory-based meditations as I start rolling them out, let me know now. Hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, obviously get subscribed. And as you can probably guess, memory-based meditation uses memory as a focal point. Now, as Dr. Dalgleish's research indicates, we want to bring together positive memories with the Memory Palace technique, often with the goal of using old or new good memories to help neutralize the bad ones. Now, how exactly we select the memories we'll work with in this style of meditation depends on the outcome. And so this means that all memory-based meditation is goal-focused, or at least goal-aware. So for example, we will have some guided meditations based on using the Memory Palace technique better, coping better with periods of depression, anxiety, and other issues, like for example, the issues with aphantasia versus hyperphantasia. And we'll have sessions to combat overwhelm, procrastination, self-doubt, and more. And in each case, there will be ideas, if not specific guidelines, for how to exactly select the best possible memories for the specific goal. That said, you don't necessarily have to share the goal to participate in each exercise. And that's where your feedback will be incredibly valuable. And I hope you'll share your experiences with each guided memory-based meditation in the comments. Now, memory-based meditation is always multisensory through the application of cave cogs. This is a special emphasis so that you get the wide range of sensory experience in each memory-based meditation. And, according to the most popular models in memory science and psychology, memory begins with sensory memory before short-term or working memory translates those experiences into long-term memory. Now, I don't want to bog you down with the science behind all of this, but at the same time, we need to know the science. Somebody needs to know it, so please chime in if you're interested, because I'm just one researcher working mostly on my own, and all of these ideas need to be at least stress tested by others. I've got a PhD, so I am a qualified researcher, and I have tons of experience with explaining things through writing and teaching in a variety of mediums. But the need for stress testing and external confirmation never ends. And so this is a good spot to discuss what I mean by science. I'm fairly confident that this is what most scientists mean by the term, but the world has changed and we cannot afford to take things for granted now any more than we could before. So what do I mean by science? It's simply this. Science is a tool that helps us produce evidence that validates or invalidates our claims about reality. Now, there's more nuance about this in the victorious mind, particularly in the introduction and conclusion, where I reflect on the role of the teacher in memory and meditation practices. The long and short of it is that we can rest assured that both the memory and meditation techniques I refer to are scientifically valid, but the data is really only relevant if you are running the experiments in the laboratory of your life. And so by this definition and understanding of science, I circle us back to the free model, which reminds us to practice frequently in a spirit of experimentation, putting science into action for ourselves to discover what works for ourselves. This approach possibly relates to what Nietzsche had in mind when he called part of his philosophy die fröhliche Wissenschaft, or the joyful science. It's pretty easy to interpret Nietzsche incorrectly, but basically, I think most people agree that he asked us to try to be our best possible selves, our highest selves, by saying yes to the circumstances evolutionary forces of life throw us into. From there, we create projects based on our claims about how reality works, and then we hold ourselves accountable to the journeys we undertake by being radically honest about the results. Now you can see what I'm talking about in Nietzsche perhaps most directly in the friendship chapter of Also sprach Zarathustra and many parts of Beyond Good and Evil, where he mentioned the concept of awakening, and he takes a few stabs at both Advaita Vedanta and Giordano Bruno, our patron saint of memory. So it's really interesting to read. Anyway, at the end of the book, he poses the question to himself, and he answers it. Ich suchte, wo der Wind am scharfsten weht. Ich lernte wohnen, wo niemand wohnt. And that's a question to himself, and I translate this basically as something like, did I seek to go where the wind bites the sharpest? There I learned to dwell where no one dwells. It's poetry, and it's meant to sum up his philosophy at the time of writing, and we can think of it like this in the context of science. Did I take on the challenges that were truly the toughest for me and allowed me to test my abilities to the fullest? Nietzsche, perhaps cynically, is saying that if you did, you probably found a place where few were willing to go. So for our purposes, seeking is enough, provided you're consistent with the practice and provided that you're radically honest about what comes out the other end. It's what the data says and what the data creates honestly, not what you want it to create, right? So frequency and consistency matter in the practice, but the spirit of experimentation says that memory-based meditation requires varying levels of challenge. So you can't just give up. You've got to keep going. You've got to practice. And we're often going to work with bad memories that we'd rather not have. So that's probably going to be more than challenge enough. I've worked to neutralize my bad memories. I've faced some discomfort along the way. And there are theories in psychology about exposure therapy, and I avoided those therapies for far too long. See, there's a paradox you need to be aware of. I wasn't ready for taking on my nastiest, darkest memories in the beginning. Yet by waiting to tackle them, I was only delaying the relief I desperately needed. For example, there was a house from my adolescence, but by using type 1 memory-based meditation, I was able to cleanse it. And by using type 2 memory-based meditation, it has become very useful for maintaining mental peace, even during moments of turmoil. But I could have used that tool much sooner, and I sure wish that I had gotten started much sooner. But we learn through meditation practice to let it go, let it go, let it go. And we can't punish ourselves for not taking action sooner because we don't necessarily know all the pressures that reality places on our current state or placed on us in the past. I don't pretend to know exactly what gets people to take action at the optimal time, but there is one thing that seems to work, and it is when people who have gotten to the top of a mountain, and sometimes even only halfway to the top, share their stories, their vulnerabilities, and the methods that help them overcome those weaknesses along the way. And of course, when you get to the top, if you're honest, all you're going to see is more mountains to climb. So it's great when people who have achieved anything share that experience too. And so to that end, let's talk a little bit more about the differences between type 1 and type 2 memory-based meditation. Type 1 revolves around long-form textual memorization to enhance knowledge and understanding. Understanding what exactly is up to you, but I've used it to reflect much more deeply on the experience of consciousness for the purposes of enhancing mindfulness. By doing so, one comes to gain experience that leads to what you can think of as knowledge about the character of consciousness. Now the benefits are profound. Instead of being batted around by the monkey mind and constantly thrown into states of psychological turmoil, consistent practice has helped create what I think of as cruising altitude. Sure, I still experience turbulence from time to time, but it's much easier to get back to cruising, almost on demand, simply by using type 1 memory-based meditation. And you can check out more about how this works by watching my TEDx presentation, 2 Easily Remembered Questions That Silence Negative Thoughts. At this point, I've memorized 4 long pieces of text that I recall daily at least once, sometimes more than once. One of them was used to neutralize the home I just mentioned, where I went through some pretty terrible experiences, or at least so they seemed at the time and felt whenever I remembered them. Now they are neutralized, and it was as simple as being willing to take on the task and use the building as a memory palace to memorize a specific text. In this case, that text was Atma Shatakam, sometimes called the Nirvana Shatakam. I memorized a version that has a particular ending that relates more closely to a philosophy called Advaita Vedanta, which at its core talks about consciousness as a kind of oneness. Now in my reading, it's a fairly brutal philosophy, one that I would say is uber atheist, but I'm aware that I'm partly interpreting it that way because that's the way I want it to be. But like many philosophies in ancient traditions, it's actually quite murky, and there are many contradictions if you don't read enough about the whole philosophy in its scope, and even then there are contradictions. So I've changed it to fit my own secular and scientific purposes while learning more about it so I can know more about comparative philosophy and philosophy throughout history. In any case, it's a nice meditative text to keep in memory and rehearse because it reminds you to think about your experience of consciousness in a way that helps reduce the sting of an undisciplined mind. And by practicing it consistently and realistically, by stripping it of what can appear to be a spiritual tone to those who aren't going to learn Sanskrit and dig deeper into what I call uber atheism, you basically wind up training your procedural memory. This means that instead of having your mind torn off into 1,000 directions the way it may have been in the past, leading to hours, if not days of mental torment as you repeat the same thoughts over and over and over again, this knowledge you've discovered about the nature of consciousness comes back almost on autopilot. No, it's not a magic bullet or the perfect solution, but in my experience, it's well worth the effort. And as I understand the research I've discovered, why the processes help create mental peace makes perfect sense. Type 2 memory-based meditation is different. Instead of memorizing texts that you recite daily to build something like a war chest of tools for being what Tony Buzan called a warrior of the mind, this second approach works with existing memories. This approach is based more closely on the Dalgleish research. Basically, they had test subjects suffering from PTSD and depression learn to use the Memory Palace technique. They then put together a number of positive memories along a Memory Palace journey. I did this myself, for example, by putting 4 happy memories in a Memory Palace based on a small study office I used to have in Robarts Library at the University of Toronto, a special gift a friend of mine loaned me while I was completing my PhD at York University. A very happy memory indeed. And in this room, I placed 4 positive memories, 1 in each corner. Then, whenever I noticed I was feeling down, I visited this Memory Palace. It's just a matter of taking some time out. For example, I will go and sit on the corner of the bed or in one of my favorite meditation spots. Usually by the time I've revisited the second happy memory in this Memory Palace, I already feel better. Why exactly this works probably comes down to dopamine production in the brain along with a renewed awareness that things have been great in the past. And when we study our experience of consciousness and interact with it, we feel more assured that great things will arise again. Of course, there's a catch, as there usually is. As with all skills, I've found that consistent practice matters for at least 2 reasons. First, you cannot develop using the technique as a positive habit without strategic repetition. Second, you can't really learn how to use it well and improve your approach without studying the practice itself over time. Of course, when it comes to everything having a catch, I humbly submit that the need to practice consistently is, in the context of memory-based meditation, the most acceptable catch in the world. Now, it's pretty obvious to me that there are many ways to practice this beneficial technique by adding it to our meditation routines. And to that end, I'm very excited to start creating several guided meditations for you that will introduce Type 2 memory-based meditation. Maybe dozens, maybe even hundreds. So stay tuned for them to start appearing on this channel soon. If you like them, make sure to support them with your thumbs up and sharing them around, being involved in the comments, because I hope that those of you who find the project interesting will share your feedback and support. And in the meantime, you can always find out more about the work that I do in this area by watching other videos on this channel and visiting me at magneticmarymethod.com. Thanks as ever to our channel members, everyone who has taken the Magnetic Mary Method Masterclass, and to our new subscribers watching now. Until we have a chance to speak again, let me know your thoughts on memory-based meditation. Are you excited to see this new direction? And check out more about the science behind memory-based meditation that I have for you on this channel with the links in the description that point you around. And until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic.